and girls, children of all ages. Welcome to Robert Sports Show. I'm your host, Robert. Alright, college football, NCAA, week 4. Alright, so in week 3, win-loss, I was 20-8. Brings me a year-to-date, season-to-date, 46-11. Against the spread, I was 11-13, which brings me to season-to-date, 33-33. Over-under, I was 12-12, which brings the season total to 35-31. We have 31 games today. First game, we have the Florida Atlantic Owls, 2-1, versus the Central Florida Knights, 2-0. Central Florida favored by 13.5. With a point spread of 71. I have the Knights winning. I am covering. I'm taking under on the 71. South Alabama Jaguars, 1-2, versus the Memphis Tigers, 2-1. Memphis, the 9th ranked defense in the country, yards-wise, and the 4th ranked offense in the country. They're favored by 28.5 over the Jags. I got them winning. The Tigers covering the 28.5 and under on the 69.5. Next, we have the Navy Midshipmen at 2-1 versus the SMU Mustangs at 0-3. Navy favored by a touchdown on the road, covering the touchdown, over on the 66. Next, we have the Northern Illinois Huskies at 1-2 versus the Florida State Seminoles, also 1-2. Florida State favored by 10 at home, winning, covering, and over on the 42. Next, we have the Clemson Tigers at 3-0 versus the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets at 1-2. Clemson favored by 17 on the road with an over-under of 50.5. Tigers win. I think the Yellow Jackets will cover that 17 and over on the 50.5. Next, we have the Florida International Golden Panthers at 2-1 versus the 2-1 Miami Hurricanes. Miami favored by 26.5 at home. I got them winning, covering on the 58.5. Next, we have a Big Ten matchup. We have the Penn State Nittany Lions at 3-0 versus the Illinois Fighting Illini at 2-1. Penn State favored by 28.5 on the road. I got the Fighting Illini covering. I got Illinois covering the 28. I'm taking 40. I'm taking over on the 58 overall points. So the Nittany Lions winning, the Illinois covering the 28.5, and then over on the 58. Next, the Nebraska Cornhuskers at 0-2 versus the 2-1 Michigan Wolverines. The Wolverines do have the 12th best defense yards against in the NCAA this year. Michigan is favored by 18.5 at home. I got them winning, covering, and over on the 49. Next, we have the Tulane Green Wave at 1-2 versus the 3-0 Ohio State Buckeyes. Buckeyes are 3rd in offensive yards this season. They're favored by 35.5 at home. I got the Buckeyes winning. I'm having Tulane cover the 35.5. I'm taking under on the 65. Next, we got a huge Big Ten matchup. We have Wisconsin, the Badgers, 2-1, coming off a loss last week, versus the undefeated Iowa Hawkeyes, with the 2nd best defensive yards against in the country. Amazing. They're averaging, giving up 8 points a game, Iowa is. Wisconsin's favored by 3.5 on the road. You know what? Iowa gives them the 3.5. They cover it over on the 43.5. Iowa upsets Wisconsin. Next, we have McNeese State Cowboys 3-0 versus the BYU Cougars 2-1. Cougars win. Next, we have the Kansas State Wildcats 2-1 versus the West Virginia Mountaineers 2-0. West Virginia favored by 16. I got them winning. I got the Wildcats covering the 16 and under on the 61. Next, we have the TCU Horned Frogs 2-1 versus the Texas Longhorns 2-1. TCU favored by 3 on the road, winning, covering, and over on the 50.5. The Army Black Knights at 2-1 versus the 3-0 Oklahoma Sooners. Boomer Sooner! Oklahoma is favored by 31.5. I have Armory covering at 31.5. Sooners winning and over on the 63. Next, we have the North Texas Mean Green at 3-0 versus the Liberty Flames at 1-0 or 1-1. North Texas favored by 13.5, winning, covering, and under on the 67. Next, we have a very, I think, interesting matchup: the Louisiana Tech Bulldogs at 2-0 versus the 3-0 LSU Tigers. Louisiana Tech is 17th in offensive yardage and 20th in defensive yardage. So LSU favored by 20 at home. Like to think this game is going to be close, but I don't think so. I got LSU winning, covering the 20 and over on the 50.5. Next, we have the Gardner-Webb running Bulldogs at 1-2 versus the Appalachian State Mountaineers at 1-1, and Appalachian State winning that one. Next, we have the Nevada Wolfpack at 2-1 versus the Toledo Rockets at 1-1. Toledo favored by 10. I got them covering under by the 69.5. Ohio Bobcats at 1-1 versus the 3-0 Cincinnati Bearcats. Bobcat versus the Bearcat. Bearcats favored by 7.5. I got them winning, covering, and over on the 54.5. Next, we have the Air Force Falcons at 1-1 versus the Utah State Aggies at 2-1. Utah State favored by 10.5 at home. I got them covering and taking over on the 64. Next, the Eastern Michigan Eagles versus 2-1 versus the 2-1 San Diego State Aztecs. San Diego State favored by 10.5 with an over/under of 48. I got the Aztecs winning, covering, and over on the 48. Next, this is a huge matchup out of the SEC. Was it East? The 3-0 Georgia Bulldogs versus the Missouri Tigers, also 3-0. The Bulldogs have the 7th best defensive yards against, while Missouri has the 7th best yards in offense. Both teams are scoring 40-plus points. Bulldogs 45, Tigers 43. The Bulldogs have given up 24 points all year, 8 points a game, while the Tigers have given up 21 points a game. Georgia is favored by 14.5. So yeah, the Bulldogs are favored by 14.5 on the road against Missouri. Missouri's playing great football right now. That offense is clicking. I would not be surprised if Missouri upset Georgia. Would not be surprised. I'm not picking it. I'm picking Georgia to win. I have Missouri covering the 14.5, and I'm taking under on the 64.5. Next, we have the Texas A&M Aggies 2-1 versus the 3-0 Alabama Crimson Tide. Bama's favored by 27 at home. But that offense of Texas, the Aggies offense, though, 5th in the country in yards. I have Tigers winning. I have the Aggies covering the 27, and I'm taking over on the 61. This is the first year that really Saban's had a quarterback, and this kid, whatever his name is, he is freaking great. He's next level quarterback. If Saban can have him for at least a year or two, a little bit at least a year. If you get him at least a second year, maybe a third year, I mean, if he's as good as he is, he may be a year or two away from the NFL. Maybe he's the heir apparent to Eli Manning there in New York. Maybe he's the heir apparent to Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay. Who knows? Next, we have the Arkansas Razorbacks at 1-2 versus the Auburn Tigers 1-2. Tigers come off a loss last week. They are favored by 29.5 at home. I got the Razorbacks covering the 29.5 and taking over in the 56.5. Next, we have the battle of 3-0, the Mississippi State Bulldogs and the Kentucky Wildcats. Mississippi State favored by 10 on the road. I got them winning, covering, and over on the 54. Excuse me. Next, we have the Notre Dame Fighting Irish at 3-0 versus the Wake Forest Demon Deacons at 2-1. Fighting Irish favored by 7.5 on the road, covering, winning, and under on the 57.5. Next, we have the Washington State Cougars 3-0 versus the USC Trojans 1-2. Yeah, USC is favored by 3.5 at home. I'm giving the 3.5 to the Cougars. I got them winning, covering, over on the 53. Next, we have the Stanford Cardinal 3-0 versus the Oregon Ducks, also 3-0. Stanford favored by 2 on the road. I'm giving the 2 to the Ducks. I got the Ducks winning, covering, and over on the 56. Next, we have the Arizona State Sun Devils at 2-1 versus the Washington Huskies at 2-1. Washington favored by 17.5 at home. I do have the Huskies winning, but I got the Sun Devils covering the 17.5 and taking over on the 49. Next, we have the Troy Trojans at 2-1 versus the University of Louisiana Monroe Warhawks at 2-1. Troy favored by 5.5. I got them winning, covering, and over on the 64. And last but not least, we have the UNLV Rebels at 2-1 versus the Arkansas State Red Wolves at 2-1. Arkansas State favored by 7.5 at home. Winning, covering, and under on the 70. We have multiple undefeated teams. Like I've said in other videos, I don't believe the rankings mean diddly squat because there's only 64 teams that are capable of making the playoffs. And out of that 64, only 20-something of those are truly capable. So right now, out of the ACC, we have Clemson, Syracuse, Boston College, and Duke, all 3-0. Clemson plays all three of those schools. So they're going to beat each other up, and probably Clemson and or Syracuse will come out of that. Big Ten, we have, out of the one division, we have Ohio, Penn State, Indiana, all 3-0. Ohio State plays both of them. In the other division, we have Minnesota and Iowa, both 3-0. We know a one-loss, non-Big Ten winner can make the playoffs if a 2-1-loss Big Ten champion exists, which has happened 2 years in a row. Minnesota, Iowa out of the West, out of the East, Ohio State, Penn State, Indiana. They all kind of play each other, so only Iowa has the easiest schedule out of that, I believe. Notre Dame is also 3-0. I don't think they make the playoffs unless they go undefeated. Big 12, Oklahoma and Oklahoma State both 3-0. They're going to play each other, so they're going to cancel each other out. Pac-12, we have Stanford, Oregon, Washington, and California, all 3-0. And then we have Colorado, also 3-0. Again, they play each other. They're going to cancel each other out. ACC, we have 3 out of each division. The East, Georgia, Kentucky, Missouri. Georgia and Missouri play each other, so there's already a cancel out. And then Auburn, LSU, Mississippi State, they all play each other. They're all 3-0. So when we start getting to the conference games and games that mean a lot, like this weekend, Missouri, Georgia, can Missouri upset Georgia? I think they can. I'm not picking them, but I think they can. Can Mississippi State beat Alabama? I think they can. Will they? I don't know. Texas A&M and Alabama's this week. You know, Alabama probably win that one for sure. So yeah, there's a lot of big games this week. There's a lot going to happen. You know, in the next 2, 3, 4 weeks, we're going to get a lot more clarity on who's going to make the playoffs. Again, I'm not even mentioning the AP polls this year because they don't mean a hell of beans. Even when the playoff polls start, I'm really not going to go over those either because, again, they don't mean a hell of beans. When you got a committee sitting in a room going, we're putting these teams in, it's a fucking crapshoot. I can do the same thing, and I'm going to do it every week. So we'll see how accurate I am. Make sure you check out the NCAA playoff predictions show I did on the Rubber Sports Show and the over-under for all the 35 teams and 36 teams I'm following. So that's going to wrap up another episode of Rubber Sports Show, NCAA college football week number 4. So definitely check out the NFL video when it comes out. Thanks for watching Rubber Sports Show. And oh yeah, if you're a pro wrestling fan, check out Progress Wrestling, Chapter 76. Hello, Wembley. As always, thanks for watching Rubber Sports Show. Just have a great day. Have a spiffy day. Rubber Sports Show, your YouTube leader in sports show and content.